2:30 on the dot. Should we be punctual?
Let's do it.
How's everybody? Thank you for being here. So this is our panel, Touring in Alternative Venue Spaces. My name is Dan Mangan. I am your moderator. Maybe the best way we can start off is actually to start at the other end and make our way back. If
Sure.
you guys could introduce yourselves and let everyone know who you are and what you do.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Kelly. I am a booking agent.
What's your last name, Kelly?
Kelly DC. I'm an agent at Outermost, based in Chicago. We're an independent booking agency that launched in January 2020. Happy to be here with you all.
I'm Ari Herstand. I am the author of How to Make It in the New Music Business. I run Ari's Take, a music business education company, the host of the New Music Business podcast, and I am a musician.
Hello, my name is Chris Carr. I am co-founder of Brooklyn Wildlife. We throw more shows than anybody. And through that, I then started working with a startup named Artery. And our goal was to take culture and break down the walls between people and communities by doing events in non-traditional spaces like living rooms, backyards, rooftops, and the site functions peer-to-peer so that we don't curate, we don't coordinate, we don't exclude. If you have an idea and you have a space, put it up there. If you're an artist and you'd like to find people, put it up there, and we make sure you connect.
My name's Dan Mangan again. I started as an artist. Put out 6 records and toured. Had the very fortunate situation of touring around the world and doing lots of cool stuff. And early on had this idea. I was playing a lot of house concerts and finding that they were sort of bang for your buck in terms of, reward, financially, spiritually, artistically, momentumly. It's not a word, don't worry about it. Eventually, I am the co-founder of Side Door, which is a sort of global marketplace for the arts where any space is a venue. Again, living rooms, backyards, warehouses, bookstores, libraries, national parks, you name it. If it's a space, it can be a venue. We have about 2,000 venues in North America and about 5,000 artists. And what happens on the platform is essentially you can find, as an artist, you can find a space. As a space, you can find an artist. You can connect, collaboratively book a show together. You can actually create a unique revenue split on the show. Everyone signs off. It's all very transparent. Ticket revenue is held in escrow. And then after the show, everyone gets paid out their split automatically right into your bank account. So that's sort of we built the infrastructure, the engine, in a very similar way to Artery, to allow people to find each other and sort of help the folks who can't get through the funnel of the booking agents and the managers, et cetera. And what we found is that the problems that we're solving with Side Door are actually helping a lot of people like agents because they're finding the exact same issues that we are. So to start with things, I really want to get Kelly's take on the state of booking tours post-pandemic, venue loss, how far out your booking holds, how hard it is to get holds, all that kind of stuff.
Sure. Yeah, that's a big one. There's a lot of nuggets there. I would say broad stroke wise, when we talk about, getting holds and reaching out to venues from an agent perspective, we do so quite a bit in advance. And these days that's been exacerbated a bit more. The touring landscape is definitely very competitive. So availability at these venues is pretty high. So we're pretty deep into 2023 and spring holds and clearing dates in that time frame. But just to kind of give you a scope of what it's even looking like for this year, there's a couple things in the fall that I'm working on, and I think I just lost 5 challenges at 7th Street Entry in Minneapolis in October. So that one is not going to go in the routing. So yeah, things are definitely very, very highly actively touring.
By the way, we have a great space in Minneapolis if you want to.
Let's talk Dan. Yeah, we're open to other options. Thank you. Yeah, so it's very competitive. Holds are deep. Everybody's going out. Everyone's excited to tour, which is a great and wonderful thing. But enters the need for other venue ideas and options and different touring strategies, which is what I'm really excited to talk about with you all today. But, you know, it's nice to see the level of activity being so high. It's a good sign. It's great to plan in advance, but we obviously know not every independent artist and not every band can plan their lives a year out. So it can be tricky for sure. You got to stay nimble. You got to have plan A, B, C. And that's kind of what my role is as an agent, to present options and be able to pivot quickly when things shift, as we know they all do very rapidly. So yeah, it's there's a lot going on, but people are getting through it, and I'm excited to see a lot of new spaces that are popping up, even though there have been a couple of, you know, closures of independent spaces and venues throughout the pandemic. There are really, you know, exciting bouts of hope and new rooms popping up and new players in the game, because it was a bit of a, you know, evening of the playing field, if you will. We all went through it, so it's kind of exciting to see, you know, what comes out of it. So that's been very positive.
One thing that kind of resonates that you said is you have to get creative, like with what you're looking at and what you're looking for. I know that both Ari and Chris have curated many wildly off-grid and successful things. I wonder if maybe you guys could speak to some of those events that you guys have done.
Do you want to start? Okay. Yeah, so last summer, so I've been working on this immersive theatrical concert experience thing. I'm obsessed with 1970s funk, soul music. I launched a funk band, and we have been developing this project for 5 years to do an immersive experience that kind of combines immersive theater with live original funk music taking place in the year 1973. We were going to do this in a club in 2020. We had it locked down, everything. Obviously, that didn't happen. 2021, we decided to put it up in a parking lot in downtown Los Angeles. And we essentially produced this show and experience, doing everything from building the stage, setting up the lights, hiring the sound engineer, getting the parking lot, convincing the law office to let us use their parking lot on Saturdays and Sundays because no one would be there, and just using that space, setting up the ticketing. It was a lot of moving parts. We probably had 20-some people as part of this operation. But in the end, it was, it was very... because I've played the club scene and done the whole thing, but it was so fulfilling to have have our own space, and we could, especially with kind of an immersive experiential event, to it's so important to control every touch point when someone is coming, and to really think about it as a full experience and not just the 45 minutes that you're performing on stage. So I really had to break out of this, like, this is my set and everything is handled. I had to put the producer hat on. It's just like, okay, from the moment they buy tickets to the moment they leave the venue, this is my event. And what's happening from when they buy a ticket, what's the communication with them to them getting to the show? Who's the first person that checks their ID? Who's the bouncer? Is he an asshole? Because, like, we've all experienced that, and, like, that's no fun. That's your first the impression of the show that you're going to, is someone is looking at you in a bad way and, like, roughing you up a little bit. And so it's like we controlled everything from every moment to get to that point, to, like, yes, the show was a lot of fun, but we wanted to curate the experience and not just think of it as a concert.
Cool.
I guess I'll focus on Summer Festival we put together in Brooklyn Wildlife Summer Festival. This year will be our 10th year anniversary. And it started, we were doing a lot of shows. I'm in a hip-hop group. I like metal, I like folk, I like dance, burlesque, kink parties. For some reason, they're not always in the same place. We wanted to do something where you can get everything in one place. And I've been doing bills where 10 people on a lineup in a night. We do 5-hour shows, and my business partner was like, "You're nuts. If you ever book another show with this many artists, I'm quitting." And I was like, "Really?" Because there was 20 people on that bill. But we had a 3-stage venue. I had a plan. So he's like, "If you ever book more than 20 people, I'm quitting." And I was like, "You know what? I'm going to book 50 people. I don't know what's wrong with you." One day. And we started putting it together. I had a venue we were using, 2 indoor stages, 1 outdoor space, and started talking to him about how would the money work. made it make sense. And we were like, we're going to do it. So we booked 50 artists one day. Buckshot from Black Moon, hip-hop artist, was the headliner. But we had Charlie and Margot, who were violinists. We had Rebelmatic, which is a punk band. We had dancers. We had people from Australia, multiple countries. And we were planning, and people were like, who's sponsoring? I was like, nobody. They're like, you have to have a sponsor. And I was like, I don't want anyone with their hands in my pot. I don't want to have any company that doesn't have any black people working at it telling me what I need to do with my space, period. And my business partner is not black. The artists we work with are from all around the world. But one thing I notice is I tell people I rap, and they're like, oh, we don't do rap here. Well, some white guy just rapped here 2 days ago. What's that about? I go to a punk venue. I want to do rap with punk. We don't do that. Go to the rap venue, want to do punk. We don't do that. So we needed a space where we could do it all. And 10 years later, it went from one day with 50 acts to before COVID, 10 days, 150 live performers, over 12 activations. I plan all of it. I look at every single artist that sends me the applications. We have a small group of staff that we are able to hire to help facilitate the administrative parts to make sure the artists get what they deserve. We're able to compensate certain artists, but it comes out of my pocket. So there are a ton of artists who say, Chris, spend that money on making sure you cover this, this, and that. We'll play for free because we want a chance to meet these other artists, because we want a crowd that actually pays attention. You respect the art because you're an artist. And now it's the 10th year we're about to do it. We made it through COVID. We made it through me having melanoma, getting my pinky toe amputated, going through treatment for 13 months, my life changing. And this music and this art is what gives me excitement about life. So we out here this year, we're doing one-offs in different cities to celebrate the 10th year. So we did Austin. Next month, we're going to be in Monterey, California. Then we're going to Atlanta. We're going to Portland, Maine. And we're doing these shows where you're going to get circus, you're going to get burlesque, you're going to get rock, you're going to get hip-hop, all in one place. If you're trans, if you're queer, if you're black, if you're whatever your identity is, we welcome and celebrate. And that's what we're here to do.
Love that. Beautiful. I think, taking a few things from that. One is that, if something is vibrant and like full of humanity and connectivity and intimacy and like, exchange, real exchange, honest, that people want to be a part of it. The fact that I think artists, it's I've said this before, but it's like, it's not how far you're kicking the ball down the field. It's the feeling of moving the ball forward that keeps you going. It's like, it's just feeling like you're doing something that is opening doors to new artists. They want to meet the artists. They want to be around vibrant things. Humans, that's all what we all want, is to just be involved in something vibrant. And so people were willing to play for free because it was going to be amazing. Now, not just, I'm not advocating artists should play for free all the time. I'm sure Ari has lots of thoughts on that. But what I am getting at is that momentum and like passion, and clearly you got passion, and it's fucking contagious, right? Like we want to be a part of that. The other thing is how crucial the space is to the context. I was joking with them earlier that if you see Feist in the corner of an Irish pub where everyone's hammered and going crazy and she's singing some songs in the corner, you would think to yourself, oh, she's got a lovely voice. And then that would be the end of your thought about her. Whereas you see Feist in a living room and she will change your life forever. She is just like no other. And I think that like early on in my career, I realized what an important role the space took. Last night we saw amazing artist, Hey Fitz, and another, Michael Bernard Fitzgerald, you might be here as well, there at the back. And the room was not set up for music. The house lights were on, the TVs were on. Brandon gets on stage and starts playing. I just walked over to the bartender and I was like, can we turn these TVs off? And they're like, I don't know, the manager wants them on. Can you just turn them off, please? They turn off the TVs. And then I kind of waited a moment. I said, can we turn the house lights off too? They turned the house lights off. And then all of a sudden, guess what? Everyone shuts the fuck up. Yeah. And everyone was listening, and it was beautiful, and it was like this amazing set. And it's like the context of the situation is as important as the talent on the stage every single time, because it sets a presumption and it sets an intention for what's going on. I'll tell a story. The first time I played in Calgary, I played at this bar called the Ironwood. I had begged them for months over MySpace to let me play there, and finally they did. And there was 4 people in the room that night, one of which is in the room here today. It was, we'll call it an artistic success. It was not a financial success. I was invited back to Calgary. About 6 months later, I played in this guy Doug's backyard. About 60, 70 people there. He passes the hat. They have no idea who I am, but they are friends with Doug. They trust him, and he curated the night. It was me and another songwriter. And, probably made like $500-600 and sold a bunch of CDs. CDs are these small, round, compact discs. And it was amazing because it was like high fives, momentum. This is like, now I have a spark in Calgary. I can fan this into a flame. This feels like something tangible. It might not be big, but it's awesome. And that was the moment that I realized that, like, getting out of the, like, once you can sell 150 or 200 tickets, and maybe you got 5 people on the road with you and a band and a tour manager and a sound tech, the comforts of a venue become very helpful, and the comforts of a contract become very helpful. But up until that point, let's call it the farm team, if you can extract like the most awesomeness out of something small, I've often said, like, if your footprint cannot be wide, let it be deep. If you can't sell 1,000 tickets, blow 40 minds. Have the most surreal and connective and real visceral experience with 40 people. And guess what? They will not only care about your music, they will care about you as a person. They will feel like they know you. They will tell all of their friends about you. And the next time you come into town, they will tell all of their friends to go to the show because they care about your well-being and they want to see you succeed. And so, I'm sorry, I'm rambling.
And these are, I mean, just to play off of that, I mean, those are the fans that you want. Those are your super fans. It doesn't matter what the numbers say on Spotify or Instagram. That's all irrelevant. None of that really matters. And we have to check ourselves oftentimes that numbers, their numbers are not going to define what your career looks like. Well, like, we all know the artists. I know the artists that have 100 million streams on Spotify and they can't sell 50 tickets to your hometown show. I would much rather have that kind of an audience with these, maybe just hundreds of super fans, but they're going to be super fans for life that will support you through the rest of your life. That's the 1,000 true fans concept. That's updated, basically saying that if you have 1,000 people that will always buy everything that you have, show up, essentially spend $100 on you a year, no matter whatever kind of opportunity you're presenting to them, you can now have them support you and have a career for the rest of your life. Those are the super fans, and the super fans come from these intimate experiences, the once-in-a-lifetime experiences. They'll never forget about you, and they want to be invested and support you in that. And it's always remembering, I was saying this back, it's just like, you got to remember what your ultimate goal is. And we get so locked in and yanked in every direction of, oh, I want to get on a Spotify playlist. Oh, I want the more streams on this and that, or I need more followers on Instagram. That's not your ultimate goal. When you're like, oh, I want to get on a Spotify playlist, that's not your ultimate goal. You don't really want to get on a Spotify playlist. You want more fans. You want to have a music career that's going to sustain the rest of your life. If you change the mindset to be like, wait, what are really my goal here? And then you look, it's like, how can I achieve that? If your goal is to have a sustainable, long-term, lifelong career with a supportive audience and a fan base, there's many ways to get to that. But we found playing intimate spaces or even just unique environments and with supporters, that's a way to really build the tribe. And just on a practicality note, when you're talking about that, anytime you play in any venue, any space, no matter how many people are there, the most important thing that you can do is get every single person's contact information in that room, email or phone number. Every time you play a show, no matter if you're in front of 5 people or 5,000 people, you should be thinking, how can I get every single person in this room's contact information? If you didn't get it up front, like through the ticketing service, because most ticketing services don't give it to you. But every time I play a house concert, either pass the iPad around, get the clipboard going, or if you're on stage opening for a big act, get a text message service set up and say, text Seattle to 55444, and I'm going to let you know the next time I come, and you're going to get this free song the next time. Because that's how you get that contact information, and then you can build off of that.
Fanning the spark into a flame.
Yes.
I'm curious, Kelly. So, like, I think many, like, as you're saying, like, when you close your eyes at night, like, what are you dreaming of? You're not dreaming of, like, a million monthly listeners on Spotify. You're dreaming of, like, Bonnaroo main stage and the crowd and the smoke and the lights and to get there at some point you're going to need a team. So, like, what do you want to see? Like what's the benchmark for you? Like, would you sign an artist who has like no touring history, or do you want? Because I think that when I think about touring in alternative venue spaces, I think it's like this is how you build those super fans. Right. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that most agents kind of want you to have done that on your own before they'll even take you on.
I mean, we talk about this a lot because there's, a constant balance of signing artists that you're passionate about, that are developing, that might not have that history, with artists that, have some establishment and can sell tickets, because at the end of the day, that's, our job. And that's how everybody, keeps the wheels turning. So it's not a perfect equation. I mean, first and foremost, we lead with the music. I lead with the music. The agents that I've worked with in the past that brought me up in this corner of the industry, that is paramount. And if I'm not having an emotional response to something, and I am not connecting on a deeper level with someone as a human and individual, and I don't see the vision, then it's just not the right fit for me, and that's okay. So barring that, I mean, we're talking a lot about data points, which are can be seen a lot of times as a means to an end. So when you're talking about, how relevant are these streaming numbers, sure, it's a metric that, we use to communicate to promoters when they're curious about what the listenership in Seattle is. It's something that I can quickly ask a manager for, or check the Spotify artist thing for, to like grab that information. But we all know that that doesn't directly translate to ticket sales.
Yeah.
So you have to really take it with a grain of salt. It's just kind of context to give you an idea of like what is out there. You really have no idea. So I am also very interested in what that more active fan base and listenership looks like, rather than the passive one. So if you're someone that really has spent the time to book your own shows and cut your teeth in learning what it means to be on the road, being your own TM, trying to, get that opening spot in your local club, and you're aware of the kind of mechanisms of all that, then that's very exciting to me, because I know that you're going to be asking me the right questions. We're going to be having really good dialogue. You're not just saying, hey, book me wherever, I'll play wherever. I don't like that. I like a partnership. I like people to contribute ideas and give me their vision, and then I add value to that. I bring what I do to the table. I don't want someone to be so directionless and have no idea what they're doing and expecting me to put them on Bonnaroo main stage.
Yeah.
So it's very much a partnership in that sense, and which is why I'm so thrilled to have this conversation and have Dan and Chris and Ari leading this, because we're really talking about that time period of like, how do I get the agent, or how do I get that slot? There's so much growth and development to be done from that beginning stage to that point where you're building your team out, that is paramount. And taking initiative is number one to me. And I think that just says volumes when you do finally sit down and have a meeting with me and you say, okay, this is the fan base that I've grown in my own way, whether it's living rooms or throwing shows with my friends. I mean, that's how I got into this industry. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I was just putting my friends in garages. Like, if you don't have that same mentality, then I don't know how to work with you.
You got to make it work with whatever means you have when you have it.
Exactly.
I think that there's a tendency for artists to, it's like you feel like your train is at the station and you're waiting for it to get full, and you're like, oh man, like when all these agents come to my showcase, they're gonna see how amazing I am, and then everyone's gonna want to get on the train, and once everyone's on the train, here we go. I'm gonna start that puppy up, and and the truth is that never works. Like, you can't have your train stopped anywhere. Your train needs to be moving. Like, you need to be, it doesn't matter if there's 3 people on the train, it needs to be moving. And what you want is people lining up at the next station trying to jump on it as it whistles by, because you have just continued to put coal in that, in the engine. It's like so much of what I think a lot of the industry goes on is like, I know a lot of folks will be like, oh man, this is so great. I listened to your Bandcamp. I thought that was really bad. And then they send it to 5 people in the industry, and they get like, oh yeah, it's fine. And they're like, oh, okay, I guess it's not that good. And so you have to have this energy of you that this is happening, whether this agent signs me or not.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not about false bravado. It's not about being like a dick. It's just about knowing what you want and how to, like, that you will pursue beyond all, like, the stats are against you, And so you have to pursue, like, the people who succeed are the ones who just persist, and the ones that get creative, the ones that like use whatever means and the assets and the whatever spaces and the people in the community that they have to just make something vibrant and real. And I don't know. I'm
Can I speak to that a
please,
bit?
yes.
So it's interesting. Also, I really appreciate this side of intentionality and what you're doing. I'm not a promoter. I got into it because I had to. I'm an artist and I wanted people there. I want to share my art with people. I come out of a griot tradition, this idea in every culture there's spoken word that transmits the narratives of the culture. It's not just entertainment. You may dance, you may sing, it may be a good time. My job is not to sell booze for a club owner. I'm here to share. And I know this may seem strong, but we're going to have to do it. Racism is real. I have no interest in playing at Bonnaroo. I'm not excited about being in a place where there's so few black people, where all the marketing is not oriented toward us, and where they book acts that bring crowds that are hostile towards us. All right? And it's when I travel the country, venues won't book us because we bring black people. If you don't believe me, come talk to me in the back. We don't need to argue about it. I'm telling you the truth. In New York City, if you tell them you're doing hip-hop, they charge the club a higher insurance rate, even though punk clubs is where they light stuff on fire and kick over the speakers and break stuff. I do independent hip-hop where it's connective, and I talk about peace, love, and the struggles of my fellow compatriot humans. We don't deal with violence and negativity. So why do we get treated with such an assumption? And around the country this happens, whether it's bookers, whether it's venue owners, whether it's promoters, they see me and they make an assumption about what we do and what we're bringing to the table and what we should do and bring to the table. The only way to get past that is going individual. For me, the institutions are institutions. No matter who's in them, they continue to be. So you go person to person, and you find a homie that's like, come to my backyard. You bring the punk artist, I'll bring the rapper, we'll bring the puppeteer, and we're going to cook. And I mean, literally, somebody's last night.
Can I have an invite to that, please?
Yeah, I want to go.
Sounds amazing.
Last night, I literally was running sound, go inside, chop up the chorizo, my homie chops up it, and we serving tacos in the backyard.
Yeah.
And that breeds, in my mind, connectivity and faith in humanity. And that I've been
Empathy.
in empathy and just excitement. Like I've been through Arizona, Nevada, Florida, Texas, all these places where you don't see a lot of people that look like me. It's amazing, awesome people there, and there are local communities there that I learned about, that people told me, don't go out there. There's nothing out there for you. They won't like you. And that's a lie. But you only know about it when it gets personal, when it gets person to person. And when I meet y'all and I learned about what you were doing, I photographed Saul Williams at CMJ. I met him backstage. That's one of my biggest influence. When I saw that you got them on a booking, I was like, I can be a part of this panel. For real. I know Lauren from Side Door because we did an event. 4 people showed up. And you came in, and I was like, it was like a storytelling and narrative night. I was like, it's not a lot of people. What brought you? Oh, I'm here for a tech firm. I run a site. I'm like, oh, competition. No, it's not. It's camaraderie. Yeah. And even though there's 4 people there, we've kept in touch for 4 or 5 years off of that experience. And to me, that's what this stuff is about. I don't give a what about any of these major stages. Book some rappers that don't talk about killing black people. Book some people that don't talk about women in the way they do. Book some people that celebrate queerness and transness, because there are rappers that do it.
Amazing. Yes. Amen.
I mean, I think it's oh, go for it.
Well, I was just going to say, you brought up challenges. Like the challenges of booking your shows, the presumptions people bring to you, the promoters, the way they treat you, or whatever. Let's talk about that, because then maybe if we get the challenges out on the table, we can talk about some solutions. But what are the hard things about booking a show? Or I mean, you guys talked about booking like huge, expansive events with but like, what are the hard things about booking like a show in Arizona and then a show in California, or 5 shows in California? Like, what are the roadblocks? And particularly when it comes to alternative venue spaces, I mean, I could speak to one. Traditionally, and this is why Side Door exists, it's hard to find the spaces. It's hard to know who's throwing the gigs. And if you don't know that person, personally, it's hard to make those connections. So maybe I can open that up to anyone.
Big one. You're lobbing me some big ones. Well, I think the starter is the availability thing. So you're always going to come up against that, especially in the landscape now. So having multiple options is always a good thing. I love that. That's why I am very passionate about living in Chicago. It's an amazing space For live music, the clubs are fantastic. A ton of independent players in the game. There are options. Not every market has those options, and it's very unfortunate. So if you want to play a certain, maybe tertiary market, there could be one promoter in town, and you might not like that promoter. And that's tough if you're routing, and that's how you get from, A to B is to make those dots connect, and you have to hit whatever it is, and you're like, okay, I'm not a big fan of this promoter, but this is my only option. That's where it stinks, and you really have to do some digging. And I tend to ask around to a lot of people more so in the arts world and get ideas, whether it's first kind of tapping more of performing arts centers, but also tapping people that are experimental artists that really dip into gallery spaces, or have more arts communities where I know they're utilizing non-traditional spaces. Sometimes we're leading with that because that's kind of what the artist wants. But again, when you're going into these smaller cities, the options are not plentiful. So it really does come down to networks and community and talking and asking. So that is definitely a challenge. Just options in certain spaces and making sure that the room is conducive to what the artist's performance is, because that's another big thing that I got into this because I'm a venue nerd. I very much am into pairing music with the right venues, and not everything works in every space. So I hate to be cornered into a situation where this is the only room that's available. This is the only thing you can do in the market. So that's a real sticking point for me, and why I love to broaden my network and contacts to be able to tap people that I know understand what I'm going for and understand my roster. And when I say, hey, I need something that's not a black box 250 cap room where they're just trying to push the cores, I need something else, they know exactly what I'm going for. So that's certainly a problem. There's many. I'll pass the next one to you.
So I've probably booked 600 shows by myself on my own for me, for my own project. And I've played everywhere from living rooms to arenas and everything in between. And I think problems, and then I'll say the solution. It's I think early on or the challenge, I should say, it's thinking about, so some of my tours, I wanted to visit cities I'd never been to before. And this was, I didn't have any online numbers to point to that I could open my Spotify for artists or whatever and be like, oh, I have 3,000 listeners in Phoenix or what. It's just I didn't. And I was like, I want to play Phoenix. How am I going to do that? So I think about, well, okay, I know I have some fans in Phoenix, so it's going to work on this tour routing. So I would send out an email to them, or just hey, I want to get through these cities. Do you live there? Would you want to get creative with me on how I could come play? And then my 3 fans wrote me back in Phoenix. They're like, I live in Phoenix. I'd love to maybe host you and in my place. I'm like, great. Let's do a house concert. So then at that weekend, I set up 3 house concerts in Phoenix, and there was 30 or 40 people that came to each show. I got everybody's email address in there. And then the next time I could come through and I could go to the promoter and be like, I just had played for 90 people the last time I was through, 30, 60, 90. I have all their email addresses, and now I'm confident that I could bring those 90 people to a club. Let's put a local opener on. We had 150 people come to that club show, and that was just a way. It had nothing to do with the internet. It was just these are real people that can do it. And so it was always, but I also was thinking I want to do this. If you think about it, you want to do a tour, or you want to play a city, how can you get creative to play that city? Another route that I took was visiting new cities. Maybe I didn't have any fans there, so I would book an all-ages club on a Saturday night, and then I would spend the whole week in town and go into the local high schools. I'm big on education, obviously, and I'm really passionate about education, so I would talk to all the music students in the local high schools about what it's like to be a musician and just how important music education is and all of that. But I basically offered this for free to all the high schools and all the music teachers, this program that I put together. And I was just let me sell the merch because I'm on tour. But also more so, let me promote my show on Saturday. So I told all the club owners, I was like, all right, so this is what I'm doing. I don't have any historical data to show you. I don't have any social numbers that I can tell you that I can, have all these things. But I'm going to be in town all week. I'm going to be in all the high schools, and I can get out at least 50 people. I'm confident I can do this. Let's put a local opener on, and let's make it happen. And in every city I did this in 10 cities, 10 I'd never been to before. We had between 50 and 400 people for those shows at every stop because of the high school thing. It was the talk of the high school that week. So it was like really getting creative about like what is the objective and like how can I find alternative solutions to get to that objective. It was like, all right, I want to build an audience in this city or play this town. And it's like, even though we have the internet at our disposal, and yes, that's a different panel on how we can use that to build an audience and a fan base and all of that stuff. This is like a real person-to-person connection that would then show up as like, no, they didn't see me in their TikTok feed, but they did see me in their music class and they liked what I played and they liked the music and they liked what I had to say. So they brought all their friends to the show, and now they're with me for life.
Yeah. I'll pick a pretty specific area because touring is cost prohibitive, time prohibitive. Depending on what you do, finding space for people that enjoy what you make. Like if you make hip hop and go to certain parts of the country, there are only country bars. If you make country music and you go to certain parts of Brooklyn, there are no country bars, And so we'll get into all that to a different conversation. But the two I would say is the retention of connectivity. You go do a show once a year. Do you have any actual retention with the people you've met? You did a great show, but if you can't get back there in a certain amount of time, if you don't have a mechanism for engagement, you're just, I don't know, there's a phrase for this, but we're just hacking in the wind or something. Like you're not really
Spinning your tires.
Yeah. We've had that experience, right? Where you're putting in all this effort, and each time it's fun, but you're not really getting anywhere. And the other part is the finance, right? If you are independent and you are self-funded and you don't have anyone who's giving you money to say, lose it, here's a promotional tour. The likelihood you are going to make money on a tour without already having a fan base, almost impossible. How do you have a fan base if you never toured, right? And so doing shows in people's living rooms and schools and community arenas, you can breed connectivity, but you're also having a more personal relationship with people because you're in their houses. It's not someone who just went out to a club, happened to see you play, and say, I do or I don't like that. There are people who are deciding, I'm going to take my time and put my effort, and I'll invest in this because their time is capital, right? Their emotions are capital. And they're investing that in you when they come to the house and sit in front of you. And then when you share that art and music and they cry and then they hug you afterwards, that's something that breeds retention. When they laugh and they dance with you afterwards, that breeds retention. And we get past I'm on stage, lights, and you think I'm looking at you? I can't see you at all. And every show I do, this is for you. And I know there's somebody there. Yeah, right? And financially, I think you hit it where I've done shows where there were 12 people and I left for $250. Yeah. I did a show where we sold out pianos in Lower Manhattan. I left the party, it was too hot. Line out the door. Amazing show. People spitting fire in the street. Almost had the cops shut it down. Over 400 people entered. I don't know how many thousands of dollars they made at the bar. After we paid out all the artists, I still left for $250. Yeah. Took me 2 months to set it up, promote. I did all the fly. I worked, I don't know how much to do it. It was a great time, but financially. Yeah. And then when we hit up the club, like, yo, let's do another one. They were like, yeah, so we really don't like the hip-hop crowd like that. And it was like, we didn't do hip-hop. You wouldn't let us do that. Everything was live band. There just happened to be rappers with it. So you do it, they win, you kind of don't win, and you still are fighting uphill. Whereas in the homie's backyard, I did a show out in Colorado, Grand Junction. The lady that hosted us is a Dallas Broncos beer-drinking, gun-shooting, 45-year-old woman sitting out there chilling in a lawn chair and brought all her friends. And I got more love in that space than I have in a venue of 100 people where they happen to be there getting nice and be like, oh, yeah, they rap. Let me keep talking about the sports game that's on. And like you mentioned with the TVs and the distraction, trying to find venues when you're traveling. There are more sports bars, at least in the area of the country I am, there are more sports bars being open than live music venues. People make more money showing Kardashians and whatever reality TV at a bar than doing live music. And I don't know if it's Netflix, I don't know if it's internet, I don't know what's happened, but people going out to live music is changing or has changed. So the house or the backyard or these exciting spaces. You got people who are like, yo, I'm going to see the illest. But it's in this place. I saw a Dillinger Escape Plan in the basement. I don't know if y'all familiar with them. They play stadiums. They're insane. The basement was smaller than this room. You're not supposed to have a band like that in a room like that. I will remember that show the rest of my life.
Yep.
You know, and I didn't start off as a Dillinger Escape. My friends were opening for them. And I will, for the rest of my life, remember their show.
I think it's important to remember that you're creating experiences, not just playing shows. And so to have that connection with people, that is what we're actually striving to do when we do play shows, is to connect, is to unite. And it is about uniting the room together as one, and then like elevating that and being a community for that moment. But to continue that community, but it has to be more than just thinking about, oh, I'm showing up to play a show. It's like, this is the community for the evening, but how can I create an experience? And so it's really thinking about every aspect of that. And I love shutting off the TVs is creating an experience. Turning off the house lights is an experience, but let's take that step further. I had everybody dress up in 1970s clothes. That was my experience that I wanted to create. And so I informed it, and people loved it. And that was like the thing. It's just like, okay, I can play along, cool. And they're not going to forget that either. So what's the experience that you want to create for your shows? And you can command that experience no matter what venue you're in. Every venue I show up to, doesn't matter where it is, I'm like, I know what the kind of experience that I want to have for my audience and for this evening. And so I'm going to set the room up to make sure that they're going to have that kind of experience, whether it's a living room or whether it's a club or a college or whatever it is, or a parking lot in downtown LA. We're going to set it up so that I can create the experience. And so just really think about that when you're setting up your shows, and wherever you're going to play, it's not a show, it's an experience.
I think back to my story about Doug, the backyard in Calgary, and I walked away from there going, it's not even the venue I need, it's Doug. Like, he was a champion for me, right? Like, he invited all his, like, it's like that 45-year-old gun-toting woman. She invited all her friends. They didn't know who you were.
No idea.
But they trusted her.
Yeah.
And so, like, early on, that was like one of my mantras was just like, find your Dougs. Like, find a Doug in every damn city, because if you can find a Doug who will invite their friends to the show in your in Doug's backyard or whoever's backyard, those people will remember it, and they will become your tribe. You know, they'll be with you. I want to leave a bit of time for some questions. If people have anything to throw at the panel here. And I had one more thing I wanted to say. Now I've lost it, I think. Oh, a very quick story. Early days of Side Door. So we've got like a pretty expansive platform engine now where you can like browse and find each other and build shows and ticketing and online shows. It's very extensive. But in the early days, we had some really cool opportunities where we had like Broken Social Scene had a day off in Boise, Idaho. Iconic indie band. And they were like, hey, you guys do house concerts. We want to do something weird and off kilter. Can you help us out? We didn't have any venues in Boise, Idaho. So I got on the phone and I called the local record shop in Boise, and I used Google. And I said, hey, we got Broken Social Scene looking to do a house concert in Boise. Who do I talk to? Who's the rad people in town? And they're like, oh, you got to talk to Seth or whatever. So he gives me Seth's phone number. I call Seth, and Seth's like, I can't do anything. I've got this other thing. But you know who you should talk to is, Adrian, and he is in Caldwell. And so 10 minutes outside of Boise, Broken Social Scene played a goat farm. And it was like a skate park, like transient punk house goat farm, organic. It was a Republican nightmare. It was a dream come true. And so they played in the basement of this crazy punk house, and it was the most iconic show in Boise history. 100 people got to see Broken Social Scene in this like sweat-laden thing. And nobody will forget that. Now they've got a following. They're a big band, but never underestimate the power of getting on the phone, making some phone calls, putting yourself out there. It's risky. It feels risky. You're like, oh, I gotta make a phone call and like talk to someone and ask them who I can play a house show with in Boise. Like, have the gumption. Fortune favors the bold. And you never know what a phone call can do to change your life.
Can I add on to your Dan story? The most beautiful thing about that is when you have that champion in the local area, you have no idea who they know. And so every time you have a Dan, you end up doing a performance, and at the end of it, someone's like, I run a venue in town.
Yeah.
And so it's the conduit. It's the every time if I introduce you and like we know each other and I'm like, this is my homie, and we've had good experiences, immediately there's a different connectivity. And so it may seem like against like the it's counterintuitive in a way of like to get here, sometimes you go into here and then you meet the people who are like, I don't let people meet me. I don't let people know what I do. But since I saw you in the kitchen and we're talking about existential crisis and Schopenhauer's theory of pessimism, I want you to play the club.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and it's like, it's not about being in the right place in the right time. It's about being in the right places in the right times over and over and over again and always showing up. And you don't often know when it's the right time. I remember playing once to a showcase here at South by Southwest back in like 2008, and there was like 12 people there. I didn't know that one of them was the executive director of South by Southwest. He hooked me up and he helped me out. He connected me with a whole bunch of people. He loved the show. 12 people were there. And you never know. You just never, ever, ever know.
Quality over quantity.
Big time. Quality, especially in that first, like, incubation period of a career, quality over quantity, over and over and over again. Any questions?
Oh, there's a microphone there if
Yeah.
you guys want to line up by the mic.
is that how it works?
It's wired, yeah.
Okay.
So you can line up there and whoever gets there and take a question.
Can I take a picture of y'all asking questions? My family's gonna be like,
I know. A lot of you showed up. Go for it.
Hi, I'm Jen. I'm a Syracuse University student, and I'm one of the co-founders of like a house venue off campus for students who like book student artists. One of my co-founders is also here with me, Lauren. One thing I really like about alternative venue spaces, obviously, is the community sense of it, but like the tech specs in terms of lights and sound maybe aren't up to snub with like a real venue. I was curious if you could speak to how you create an experience of live music without having that like tech stuff behind you.
It's a really good question.
I'll jump in on this one.
Yeah.
Just because I went to a co-op show with W.H. Long the other day, and it was, on the campus, very like DIY. It was probably the best set I've seen this whole entire week. So it just goes to show that like you don't need the most, professional sound system for the right type of music if everyone's just losing their minds, having a good time, and nobody's getting electrocuted and everybody can hear, it's
safe.
gonna be great. Yeah, so I would say definitely safe. If you're a student and working at a student space, there's definitely gonna be people around you, whether they're in the theater department or the audio department, that you can tap to have come through and help you out. I know when I was doing house shows in college, there was always somebody that I would just have come through and like set the PA up and like watch over it. But it was such a good breeding ground for knowledge on my end too, because they then in turn taught me how to set the PA up. And sometimes all you need is a very simple infrastructure. And then again, depending on the artist and what the music calls for, you can do a lot with that. So obviously maybe don't bring in a 10-piece with a horn section and, requiring all kinds of stuff to be mic'd up. Make sure you're kind of bringing stuff in that is gonna, work under a simple PA setup. But I would definitely recommend that you, kind of tap your resources at the college, because there's a ton of people probably that would be able to come through and kind of lend a hand that you might not be expecting. But yeah, I feel like I always grabbed people from like theater and like the community space that did like coffee house stuff.
And
I would always
in
have them
general,
come
college
down.
students, they're up for a time. Like, when I was in university, like, I would volunteer for anything if it looked
Yeah.
cool,
yeah, that's what I was going to say. One of the benefits of if you're doing non-traditional venues is you get to augment the space. When I go into other venues and I'm like, my friend is a designer, my friend's an interior decorator, my friend is a carpenter, they're like, don't touch our stuff, period. And it's like, wow, there's nothing up on the wall that represents my friends. Some of these people are actually offensive historically towards my friends. And when you're doing DIY stuff, you go into the basement and it's my homie like, all right, they've made up their own theater production, and so they build a set for your show. They set up the lighting, and your friends are happy because they're like, I wish I could play music. I can't. It's like, you're still involved. This is community. And one thing about DIY, it's a misnomer. You can't do anything yourself. It's you're able to be responsible for yourself, and you're prepared to say, I will take on the responsibility to set up, clean up, break down, be the janitor, be the executive director, be the sound person, but someone, you're gonna have to hit up the homie like, my speaker went out, can you help? And they're gonna say, yeah, because I don't know how to do the music part, but I wanna be a part of this and say, look what I did, I'm part of this. And you can use that creativity, especially in non-traditional spaces. And so if anything, I think, if you're on a college campus, it's taking advantage of all the other ancillary creative endeavors people are engaged in and how deep they wanna go and let their imagination kind of work in collaboration with yours.
I got a friend in Vancouver who throws house concerts on their lawn, but they needed chairs. So there's a church a block down on the street. They went over to the church and said, hey, if we give you some tickets to this house concert, can we borrow your chairs? And now the minister at this church that they have nothing to do with, no affiliation, comes to every house concert, shows up with his pickup truck and like offloads like 50 chairs. And he's like super hunky-dory. He's just like into it. And, they're building community. Like, they're all helping to foster the experience, and they're all excited about it. Minister's probably stoked people are using his chairs, like, everyone wins.
Yeah, and I would say, to follow up what Ari was saying, it is an experience. So don't think just because you DIY, you can slap anything together and it's fine. I do want to make sure, no matter how punk or no matter how underground or how much you don't give a what, I put blood, sweat, and tears in it. Find other people that care about it like that, and make it as dope as you can. You don't not do the show because you don't have a lighting rig, but you also don't show up and be like, yeah, they never cleaned up the pizza box from the party last night, I'm gonna leave it there. Like, nah, put in the work. But it's possible. And so I appreciate you identifying that it's an experience for other people. What makes you want to get up out of the bed? And now it's post-pandemic. We don't know how to behave. Like sociologically, like, what are we doing? This is a great opportunity to reinvigorate the human spirit with experiences and reintroducing us to each other in intimate spaces, but with that experience in mind, with that depth.
A show should make you feel like you want to plant a garden and climb a mountain and call your mom and it's like you should leave that place feeling like, despite all the evidence, the pros of existence do outweigh the cons. It's like you want to fill up with jet fuel for the next 6 months. It's going to get you through it. Sorry, I want to get through some more people.
Hello, my name is Franz and I come from Italy. And I believe I can speak for everyone here that this has been a beautiful panel. Because very inspiring, because in the South by Southwest we talk about business side of things, but it's really inspiring to see people that say like they believe in music and the power of creativity, of unity, and I don't know. It's really touched me.
Thank you.
So I have and I apologize in advance for my bad English.
Perfect.
But
much better than my Italian.
I have a kind of a weird personal question. So I'm a tour manager agent, and I go up in the punk do-it-yourself scene, and at the same time I'm a music venue owner. Okay, and we build up that venue. When we were in our 20s, and it worked, and it's really inclusive. We have every kind of music, we have all our friends and the people in the community working there, and we try to be fair with the, people working there and the bands. It became really popular, so it grown, and now it became a really established, good venue, and we are proud of it. I wish everyone could see it. It's our CBGB, it's our Gilman Street, and we built
What
it.
city is it in?
Bergamo, Italy. You heard about it because it's the epicenter of COVID, unfortunately. Sorry?
Get on.
Yes. Please do. We make good pizzas, as you would expect.
But they don't leave the pizza boxes out.
So from one side, we are really proud of it. Okay. From the other side is a proper venue, with responsibilities, taxes. We have to pay the people, and as much as it socially can be, inclusive it can be, is a proper official venue. So sometimes I wonder, and this is my question, I wish sometimes to be in a garage concert. I wish it could be, because I grow up getting in trouble doing shows everywhere, and in Italy it's forbidden, So I end up having problems with the police, booking punk shows, and so I miss that, and I feel the power of that. I sometimes think I became what I hated. I became the owner of a proper venue, as much as inclusive it can be and fair it can be. So my question is, how can you combine that? Because sometimes I'm at my venue, there is a beautiful festival, everyone is happy, but then I wish the kids would be book book your show in the garage because that's the important, in particular after COVID.
Yeah.
You know, my hope was like, I don't want to go back in my venue. I want to go back in garage and see like new bands and being excited because I feel the excitement for that.
Yeah.
So sometimes, you know, I don't know if there is a way, in your opinion, to have like a good venue that is inclusive, that is social, that is fair, but at the same time to keep that excitement and that involvement of people in a sort of like, what would you do in my shoes? Like, what would you do?
I have a thought, and you know, it's funny with Side Door. We say we're trying to do this impossible thing, which is scale intimacy. You know, like it's like what a ridiculous thing to try and do. Have you thought of, and maybe you already do this, of using your venue not just like at night? You know the purpose of your venue. What about during the day? Like, could it be a place for music school seminars? And could it be like a cross-pollination? Could you run inclusivity events to try and, you know, like, could you do things to cross-pollinate the different musical scenes in your city? I've often thought that, like, we have, like, in Vancouver, where I live, there's like a dance center. It's a nonprofit. And music is always relegated to private spaces. It's always relegated to places that sell booze. And but all of those places are empty during the day. How could they become community centers for music? Or how could they become community centers for the arts? And often they don't because there's just no intention. You sound like a guy with some intention, you know?
We do that, but
Yeah.
there is still something missing, which is the small feeling of don't giving a shit, you always say, like, you know, like not having to pay taxes or wondering about, you know, where you book a show, where you do a show, or just like the freedom. Like, as much as you can be positive, optimistic in a venue, in a space, in a structure, you don't have enough freedom.
Something tells me Chris is going to drop a bomb here. He's
No,
just
no. I unfortunately, this is where my cynicism comes out. I live in New York City. You can't. You got to pay rent.
Right.
Like 1,000 square foot spaces over $2,000-3,000. If you have a liquor license, to buy in a liquor license might be $20,000-30,000. My friend opened up a venue. They spent $400,000 to open up a venue. That's the place where we did our first festival. It was an old warehouse. He had worked in city planning, so he knew how to get the permits pulled, and it still cost him over $400,000 to run it. So when we're talking about doing events, and he's like, yo, it's going to be $3,000 a day. And I'm like, Eric, you know how I live. I can't do that. And he's like, you're getting the discount. I like what you do. And that's just the reality. So the way I look at it is, I bet you have some friends who still don't mind dealing with the cops and might have a warehouse space to where it may not be on you to be the same thing for 30 years straight. You may do what you're doing, but then you work with the younger up-and-coming community members to tell them how you did it. Because there's a gap in generations where some of the young folks aren't learning what it is to be DIY and the safety and protocols and how to really foment that community. And so I don't know, at least where I live, if I know of a venue that can do both. I don't see it.
Yeah.
But I do see members of those communities definitely still be involved and be like, hey, you're trying to do something wild? I know someone with the empty warehouse. You can't do it in my club, and then I'll come to your show. You know, because again, insurance is real, taxes are real. Like the government can come in your building at any time, and if the fire department ever puts a sticker on your front door in New York, they shut your building down before the cops, before anything else.
I was just going to really quickly add, just because you talked a lot about, you know, spaces that aren't booking with intentionality and feeling not welcome in certain genres. I think that because you come from that space and it's so important to you that you're booking a certain way, that's really important. I mean, we're talking about embracing, you know, DIY and community spaces, but there are promoters with, you know, independent venue spaces that are great at what they do, and finding those diamonds in the rough and being that, you know, needle in a haystack maybe is so integral. And while maintaining your position as, you know, a club that still has to fill the calendar and sell shows, you're still doing it with a thoughtfulness, and you're being that kind of beacon for the community of the way to do it right, while also kind of bringing up the next generation. And so one of my questions for you would be, you know, who works at the club? Like, who's being staffed at the door? Who's doing hospitality? Who's working with the artists and making sure that those are the kids that are trying to learn what it is to come up and be a young concert promoter, or maybe get into management, or they're trying to figure out how to throw a DIY show. Bringing that environment and energy and young, fresh, you know, perspective on it, and letting them enter in your established, respected facility what an eye-opener, and like what a way to like learn, and just a breeding ground for new ideas. And it gives you that resurgence of, you know, that old, you know, mentality and excitement that you used to have being in the DIY space. So I would really encourage you to kind of open up, you know, your staff, and if you have an intern program, to those people, so that you can kind of be that mentorship and that segue to help them continue to build that DIY scene alongside your club that still sells tickets and is that one option in town that you know is going to be safe and inclusive and representative of what's important to you.
Thanks, France.
Thank you guys so much. I feel so freaking inspired. My name is Money, and I'm a therapeutic pop artist, and I'm releasing a nature-based EP. And I really want to give people an experience of nature alongside of the music. And I want it to be public. I want people who are just there to be able to be a part of it. What are the best practices and challenges of doing something like that, where it's not as structured? You know, you're in a park, maybe you're on a beach. Do you guys have experiences of that, and what would you say to me?
I do. There's like a series that's coming to mind as you're saying this in LA called Floating. I would encourage you to look them up, because this is kind of what they're based upon, is deep listening experiences in nature in LA. So they activate a lot of outdoor spaces. I recently did an album listening event with an artist of mine out in Joshua Tree in it was technically Yucca Valley, the Tumbleweed Sanctuary, but it's everything that you're talking about. It was meditative based, it was community based, and it's very much a members insular community, in that, you know, you sign up to receive information, and they can just kind of drop these shows, and it's starting to build, you know, a community of people that like trust their programming, essentially. So they'll have a number of different artists, and it's all done through text messaging, and they'll drop, you know, hey, we're doing this Joshua Tree thing on Tuesday, here's the RSVP link, and it's all donation based. But I feel like that's very much in your wavelengths. And as far as just like the challenges, you know, production is going to be a big one. So my question would be like, what's the setup? Is it live? Is it playback? And just finding a partner that can help you with that, and like take care of the curation and marketing aspect, and have somebody come on board that can set up a PA and understand how to navigate the challenges of being outdoors. But I would definitely encourage you to look out Floating. Feels Like Floating is the website.
Thank you so much. I do live in LA, so.
Just wanted to add to, like, on Side Door, you know, we've done shows in national parks and campgrounds. Our, like, any space is a venue thing is, like, really real. And we've probably, over time, hammered out a lot of the things that, you know, naturally in the workflow of the platform would help you sort of, like, find the guardrails of, like, you know, putting it all together. I would encourage you to, I mean, big plug, this is my company, sidedooraccess.com, but it's, you know, have a look, because we might be able to help you with.
Thank you so much.
And we
Yeah.
can do like donation-based, like pay what you want, ticketing, all that kind of
Gorgeous.
stuff.
Yeah, and kind of piggyback, I need to connect with you all. Space is always an issue with DIY stuff, and a while ago, I was out in Colorado on that trip, and I came back like, get land. We can't do a festival the way we want unless we own the land. Started looking into it. So we bought 22 acres upstate. We just closed last Friday. We want to do artist retreats. It's on, I mean, shameless plug, but
Plug, do it.
shameless plug, Black land ownership. And we did it donation based. We got crypto donations, hand-to-hand donations as small as $50, institutional donations as large as $10,000. But we're buying space so that we can have artist retreats where people will care to make sure your sound will be good, make sure that y'all be safe out there. And we go to parts of the country that are rural, but to where you will feel welcomed. And so we need to connect, because now we have a space. And we need to connect, because I love Saul Williams. And we got to bring you out to teach some classes. See how that works, you know? And then we can all meditate. Right. So, yeah.
And we can decentralize the live entertainment world. Shows do not have to be downtown at night with booze. Shows can be during the day. They can be like outside in the country. They can be anywhere. Like, and I think that they're post-pandemic, like anything goes now. The cage has been rattled, and we can make a new kind of industry in any way that we want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, come holler at me. I want to know about your meditation. Get my info.
I want to reiterate the thanks to you all. You're hearing it from everybody, but this is probably one of the most real human things I've experienced at South by this year. So thank you. This is amazing and definitely fuels me. And I have a couple questions, I guess most specifically for Kelly. First, I do want to say, though, to Chris, one of my groups, one of our very first performances actually was an artery showcase. And talk about being in the right place at the right time, just by the nature of doing what you love. I don't think I even knew Instagram was. We didn't have an album, and yet somehow the founder of Artery had heard a song of ours. We sing Eastern European music, and he had just been spending time in the Republic of Georgia, and so he cold calls us, sets us up this Artery showcase. Like, nobody's ever heard of us, and the next thing we know, we're performing to an extremely diverse audience in Brooklyn, like hip hop artists and stuff.
What was the space?
Was it was a house show.
It was in a house or like a warehouse type of thing?
No, it was a house show.
We have to talk because I saw one of the Georgian bands and sampled them and used them in my music. Vladik is the person that hit you up, or Salima. I know.
That
Yes,
was him.
yes.
Yeah. So that was like our second show or third show ever. Yeah. So Artery is dope. And yeah, again, like the only thing that we had in common with the hosts, the members, the other bands, etc., was just our love of music, the fact that sound makes us want to go plant a garden and call our moms. So it was really rad. Talk about cross-pollination. My question, as someone who has been doing DIY booking for many years and is experiencing burnout, my questions are for Kelly. When you reach that point where you need help, what is it that agents are looking for? Like, what makes you say yes? And something that I've heard and read over and over again, big fan of Ari's take, by the way, like you are my education textbook. Something I hear over and over again is that booking agents need to see you live, and that cold calling's never gonna work. Is that true? If that's not true, what are you looking for? What makes you actually say yes to an artist when they reach out? And a big thing for those of us who are not 20 and maybe do have families or side jobs, et cetera, what kind of availability do you need from a band? If a band says, I can only tour a few weeks out of the year, or I can only tour a couple months out of the year, is that going to be still workable for you, or do you need a larger amount of availability than that?
Yeah, a lot of really great questions. Thank you for asking them. So yeah, again, barring just loving the music, the seeing them live first thing is a good question. Being a live music aficionado, like I would love to say that I only sign people that I've seen live before, but it's true that I've definitely signed things that I've never seen live. Great example, W.H. Long out of Manchester. Everyone, please go see them. I've been listening to them for years off of a random song that came across my rotation on SoundCloud. Like, it just played after something else I was playing and, like, stopped me in whatever I was doing to be like, who is this? What is this? Like, let me save this. Let me write down this name and look up everything about them. Like, it was that powerful of a track that I went back and was like, okay, I need to dig into this. And fast forward a couple of years later, when I was about to launch Outermost, I just reached out willy-nilly, like, I am your biggest fan. I've pre-ordered the vinyl. I've been following your every move. Like, there's not a lot of info out there about you, but I'm just a huge fan. Like, what's the story? Like, do you have a team? And right before we launched Outermost, they, were into the conversations we had after a few Zoom calls, and we're like, yeah, we'd love to be on the roster. We launched in January 2020, and I literally just saw them for the first time yesterday.
Amazing.
So that's a great example of just, I was so compelled with the music and just feel so passionately about that, like, I'm in it for the long haul. We're going to figure it out. I'm here for the slow build. If that means your debut is at South by Southwest in 3 years, like, let's go. So that's a great example of, like, absolutely, I don't have to see it live. But would I love to? Of course, because that's what I need to know and be able to talk to people about and understand. And that's, what I respond to a lot is the live performance, but not 100%. So trying to think of the other, there's so many good questions in there.
I'm kind of getting the signal here that we got to,
okay.
yeah.
I'm happy to chat with you afterwards because there's some good
And
ones.
tonight, guys, amazing bands. The side door. One last plug for Side Door. We have our showcase tonight at the Drafting Room on Rainy Street. Scab, Cadence Weapon. We got Abstract Rude. We got Junico, and I might be doing a pop-up set because we have Status on Status Can't Play at midnight for me. But it's 7 to 2. Gully Boys, yeah, amazing.
8 to 2, and everybody should come because we obviously have more to talk about.
Yes, yeah, come find us. There's like 6 people here from Side Door, and come talk. These are wonderful human beings. Let's talk. Let's hang. Yeah. And
Thank you, guys.
Ari wants all your emails.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you all, yo. Y'all are awesome.